Okay. Write-in question. I have a getting started problem. I'm a 37-year-old male, and I know that I need to make changes if I want to live the kind of life I always imagined living. I could lose a few pounds. Um, okay, I can relate to that. By the way, I'm staying on my program. If you guys have been sharing, when I couldn't walk for those 2.5 years and had all the surgeries. I got so fat, you wouldn't believe it. I've lost 30-ish. Anyway, I still have a few more to go. I could lose a few pounds. I could take my dating relationships more seriously. I could be more ambitious at work. I could play a few less video games and drink a bit less. Just reading the question, I would bet that you really like video games and drinking because you kind of minimize that. I could play a few less video games. Well, if video games are a problem, it's probably not a few less, probably. And if drinking's a problem, it's not a bit less. I mean, one less cocktail if you've had six is probably not going to push you over the sober bar. But I don't and feel like I'm always living in tomorrow. That's a very important sentence right there. I come up with plans, but I never get started. Is there something I can do today that will make the kind of difference that I will feel immediately and might help me get more motivated to get to work? Great question. It's something I think all of us can relate to at some season in life. We know we got to make some changes. We're not quite making them. I just want to focus on a couple of words here. You said the life you imagined. Um, I would want you to get very structured about that. I would want you to say, when you say life, let's pick a timeline. One of the things I do every now and then is I go to my funeral, um, and I think about what's going to be said. And what would I like being said? Because what that means is that's the way people have that I've known and loved will have experienced me. So what do you want written in your obituary? That's the long view, right? It reminds me of the joke of the guy was a real jerk. And at his memorial service, there were only two people there. And the rabbi looks at him and says, well, they're at the grave site. He says, anybody want to say anything? They look at each other and one of them says, well, his brother was worse. Well, we want people to be able to say better things than that, right? So, but that's the long view. I'm trying to paint a timeline here, but let's go to, what do you want your life to look like in some categories? Okay, you mentioned dating, you mentioned health, you mentioned work. I like to think of the pie of life as three big slices. We have the clinical piece, which is our health, our anxiety and stress and body and blood pressure and energy levels and depression and addictions, all those things we call clinical problems or thriving, the positive side of that. Second big piece of the pie is our relationships, all things relational. You mentioned dating. And the third one is our performance. So broadly, why don't you make three columns and say, here's what I would like to look like in those three areas, right? And then from there, what are some specific goals that I would have to hit in order for that to be true? For example, if I want to be healthier, you said lose a few pounds. What's the weight you're trying to hit? If you're trying to have a dating life, what's your goal by next year? Do you want to have had, what's that, a year, 50 dates? That's not a lot, one a week. You can pull that off if you do the right things. And on your career goals, what would you like to achieve in the next year? Now, here's what a lot of people do. They stop there, and your goals will never get you there, but you won't get there probably as effectively without the goals either. Okay, if we don't know where we're aiming for, we're probably not going to hit it. And research has shown that when people have goals that they've actually written down, I think the percentage is in the 60 or 70% range, something like that, more likely to reach the goals. But your goals are not the method. Okay. Your goals will never get you there. What's going to get you there are specific activities. So then what you got to do is you've got to list just a handful of specific actionable things that you have 100% control of. Okay. One of my things is I told you I'm, on this path down to lose weight. One of them is 10,000 steps a day. I can control that. I can control that. We're going to get to the next point in a second. But sometimes, even though I can control it, I suck at it because I get busy and I don't feel like it or whatever. And probably on those activities, you may need a coach or a buddy that helps you do it. Fortunately, I have a wife who loves to walk, and I have a Doberman who loves to walk. And both of them say, let's go for a walk often. And that kind of helps you. But if you have a buddy for those activities, so I want you to get specific about the activities. Now, you got a great plan, right? Well, you said you make all sorts of plans and you feel better. The very act of making a plan is going to give you hope and you're going to get a dopamine rush or whatever. And that makes you feel better. People get excited when they go buy the exercise equipment. Well, you get excited. I mean, you got a plan, you got a vision, and that feels like motivation, but it's going to go away. You cannot achieve anything by depending on motivation. Research has shown that. Motivation will wane. What will not wane is prioritization of the activities. So if the activities have a priority, and not just in your head, in an actual time and place in your calendar, you do that first, then you're going to get there. Now, having said all of this, none of this is going to work probably without the next thing. I think if you've been stuck for a while, you really would do well to find a coach or a counselor or a buddy or a mentor or somebody that's going to regularly, in a structured way, you go see them once a week, or like AA does, you have a sponsor call every day or whatever it is, somebody that's going to get you moving when you're not moving, hold you accountable when you're not doing it, review the obstacles of when you hit them, and generally speaking, that should get you unstuck. But listen, pal, if you're dependent on motivation, how many times you heard people say, well, if they wanted it bad enough, they would do it? That's just not true. Research has shown that motivation can be inversely correlated to goal achievement. Some people want it so bad that they can't pull it off. And then because they want it so bad, they get more depressed. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, Proverbs says. And so the very fact that I'm motivated and can't pull it off is going to make me more depressed where I'm less motivated. It's the prioritization of the activities that move the needle that are going to cause it to occur. All right. And the more structured you can be about that, given your situation, the better. Somebody's trying to get out of debt, set up an auto pay where, every month this amount is going to go to that debt or whatever. That's something I learned in two categories. Three categories, actually: giving, taxes, and savings. And a lot of people say, well, I don't make enough to give or I don't make enough to save. I'm sorry. There are some situations where, yeah, I get it. That's probably true. And it is true for some. There are some people who don't even have enough to eat. I understand that. But I'm talking about where, and even people that make a little bit of money, looking at where can I cut back a little and give a little? Where can I cut back a little and save a little? Where can I cut back something that I can do without until I get that up where I need it? Go look at Dave Ramsey's program for that, and it's pretty structured. But if we don't structure it, I remember my parents taught me, I got a as soon as I knew what money was, what are you, 5 or 6 years old, they gave me $1 a week allowance. And they taught me first dime goes in, we're going, yeah, I'd get it on Sunday. We're going to church. First dime goes in the plate. You give first. And second dime goes in your piggy bank. You save it. And then you do whatever you want to with the rest. Okay. Well, later, because I don't have the way my taxes are, they're not taken out of my checks. Because I have different things I do and money comes in. First part goes to giving. Next big chunk goes to a tax account because it's not mine. I don't want to feel like I have it, right? And then I get to play with the rest. So anyway, my point in all this is you're going to reach these goals. You probably got to structure it in order for it to occur.